Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of Peters Township Council to order for Monday, June 9th, 2025. Mr. Lauer, can you please call the roll?
I've not heard from Ms. Shanafeld. Dr. Broska will not be here tonight. Mr. Curry?
I'm here.
Ms. Shanafeld is here.
Just walked in.
Mr. Steigel?
Here.
Mr. Kozer?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
I have not heard from Mr. Ross.
Okay, I'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is going to be approval of the meeting minutes from May 27th.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 5-0. Seeing nothing under special reports, we'll move into audience comments. This is an opportunity for a member of the audience to address council on a non-agenda item for up to 5 minutes. Mrs. Shaner.
Hi, Ann Shaner. I just wanted to thank council for allowing us to have a beautification site because we did do it. I hope you all notice it. It's on Route 19 as you're entering from North Strabane coming into Peters Township where the entrance to Ace Hardware.
I saw somebody working on it
Well,
Friday.
Well, we
Wow.
finished it up. It's all done, and we are very proud to maintain that site. We're looking forward to doing so, and we will change it with the seasons also, because we do plan to put some perennials in there for the spring and make it very nice to welcome citizens crossing over into Peters Township. So I thank you very much for allowing us to do that.
We appreciate that.
And that's all I have to say. I just have to write my address here.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Dennis Cicerelli. I live at 130 Oakwood Road. I've been a 35-year resident of 130 Oakwood Road. Can I approach council with copies of a cover letter and a petition?
Certainly.
Okay.
Watch the cables.
Mr. Zamitis?
Watch the cables.
Thank you.
I have some prepared comments to make. I should have called to be on the agenda, but I'm not. Last year, I produced a petition asking for traffic studies of Oakwood Road. 2 were done. The first was by Officer Connor Warfort, who did a 9-day study back in June using a device that displayed vehicle speed. The volume was impressive at an average of 4,349 vehicles per day. As I explained in the cover letter, drivers were quickly learned to reduce their speed because of this device. I watched this occur from my driveway, from my front yard. The second study was done by TPD in September. This study was done at 2 different locations. One was at the top of the hill at 101 Oakwood Road, where directly across from this house there's a sign that reads speed hump 15 miles per hour. The other was at 153 Oakwood Road, and there is a speed hump at 155 Oakwood. A sign going up the hill reads speed hump 15 miles per hour. Also going in the opposite direction, there is a left curve sign with a posted 15 miles per hour. This report indicates an average of 3,753 vehicles. This information shows how difficult to register the actual speeds of on Oakwood Road. During rush hours, the traffic increases dramatically as vehicles take Oakwood Road to miss the northbound congestion at the intersection of McMurray Road and Route 19. We are very concerned about pedestrian safety on Oakwood Road, especially since there are no sidewalks. While walking my dog on Oakwood Road, I deliberately move off the road and stop. Most of the vehicles will move to the other side of the road, but some do not. Since Oakwood Road is considered a throughway to alleviate the congestion at West McMurray Road and State Route 19, the township is the township willing to sacrifice the safety of residents on Oakwood Road to alleviate the congestion on a state route, on a state road. It is the consensus of the residents of Oakwood and Alexander Roads that their lives and safety outweigh the congestion of the Route 19 intersection. It is bewildering to us that the township chooses to sacrifice the residents in this manner. This council has put on notice that if improvements are not made, that the township will assume the liability if someone were to be hurt on Oakwood Road. The township has the power to do some speed reduction methods. Please use them. Thank you.
Paul, do we,
Any questions?
I guess we can address your points individually.
Okay.
The traffic monitoring devices, I think, didn't we appropriate some amount of money to buy some of those with the forfeiture money?
Generally, we're using TPD's equipment to do that.
Well, I'm saying the ones that display your speed.
Yes, in fact, we have just got 2 more in.
Okay, I think that that's reasonable to put one there. We know it's a cut through. The other 2 issues, I'm not sure what the warrants are, Mark, regarding flashing stop,
Yeah, I mean,
red lights and stuff.
Mr. Cicerelli's correct. I mean, we've done 2 speed studies, which have shown that there is not a warrant for further traffic calming. We've already done traffic calming on Oakwood back in 2009. We put 3 or 4
Yes.
speed humps on it. So we had TPD go out, and we also had the police go out and do speed studies with their portable signs, and didn't meet the need for traffic calming. We had TPD also do stop sign warrant study at Oakwood and Alexander. It didn't meet the warrants. So Mr. Cicerelli's right. You know, it did show a high volume of traffic on Oakwood, which we all kind of know because it's classified as a collector road. It's not a local road. And one of the concerns too is, you know, the intersection up at West McMurray is very congested too, and to try to dissuade people from using Oakwood as a cut through when it's a public road, people can use it. Just seemed like it might actually exacerbate the congestion up at West McMurray. So we've had several conversations, and at this point, you know,
Aren't we redoing that intersection with West McMurray?
Well, what we've done at West McMurray, based on a study that was commissioned by PennDOT, when you're in the either lane now, you can make a left-hand turn to go north on 19. You know, one of the problems there is that stacking lane for that left-hand turn would go back into the traffic that was attempting to go straight ahead. The idea is to do as you occurs on East McMurray Road, headed towards West McMurray Road, where both
Right, you have 2
left-hand
lanes
turns.
of turn there, right?
Yeah.
You're going to make it so you can make
So
it.
that's something that's only been there, I guess, for
But what
maybe the
about,
last
I'm talking about down like where the curve is. Isn't there something, weren't we redoing that bridge or something down there?
well, the bridge.
Yeah.
And when's that going to occur?
Next year, next summer, hopefully.
Okay, I thought it was more recent. Okay.
So I think it's reasonable right now to get one of those displays up
We
there.
could do that.
So I don't think there's much we can do with the stop sign just because it doesn't meet the warrants. But perhaps we could even look at doing a targeted enforcement for a couple weeks as well.
Well, my son
Wait a
had,
second. Just like I said, I mean, we have a valid petition. It's signed, right? Is there enough people's signatures on here?
And we already did the study. I mean, this
It
is.
doesn't meet the warrants.
Yeah, but you did the study not this year, right? You did it, when did you do it? Last year?
Last year.
Correct. A year ago.
24. Yeah, this is 25.
Well, I'm just saying, if you get a new petition, doesn't it go on the list?
I don't know about that. I mean,
My
I don't know
recollection
how often.
my
you-
recollection is there's no time limit as to, you know.
But there is a cost to doing these, and if
Well, I understand that,
If
but I mean,
council wants us to tell the traffic engineer to move ahead and do this study again, we can do that.
And before you go any further, please, if you're going to have a conversation, could you go
But-
outside? And
but
we can
this-
have one speaker.
Yeah, but this isn't what is part of what needs to be recorded.
Oh, okay, I guess,
Okay.
all right.
Yeah, I apologize.
But having said that, there should only be one conversation occurring.
Well, I say we put the speed signs up first and see if that makes it better. I don't think we should be doing a second study again if we just did one a year ago. That's just my opinion, though. I mean, I can't imagine, there hasn't been any event that would have
Well,
caused the traffic to increase that much from last year. There's not any detours down in that area at this time.
It was bad. Thursday night, it was backed up coming eastbound all the way to the second nursing home.
On McMurray,
On
on West
McMurray, yeah.
McMurray.
It backs up a lot. Every day it backs up because I try to avoid that intersection when I go out and I tell my wife, traffic is bad, I'm not going out. And
Okay.
it still backs up. Backs up all the way down to Oakwood.
Beyond it
Almost.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes beyond it.
Okay, well, we're going to put the traffic indicator, the speed counter, right?
yeah.
Let's
That
do
would help.
first. Let's do that first and
That,
see if
that slows people down. As soon as they know it's there, they slow down. I've
Okay.
watched it.
Yeah, I honestly believe most people that are speeding don't intend to speed. I mean, I see those lights or those indicators, I look down and if I'm going over the speed limit, I slow down. So I think that's 90% of the issue, just
I agree.
placing two.
But we don't have sidewalks, and there's a lot of school buses and pedestrians on Oakwood Road. And when I walk my dog, I try to get off the road, but most people will go on the other side of the road, but some do not. And it's dangerous. Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else from the audience? Case, Tony?
Hey, Tony Brown, 123 Druid. Mr. Lewis, not to pick on you, but I know you've been around a long time, and you may know the answer to this. So, if you're in a council meeting like this, and a good idea comes up, or you think it's a good idea, and you want to enact it in the coding or zoning ordinance or so forth, can you explain to me that process, how that occurs?
Well, it depends on what authority you're going to challenge. If it's a law,
Or add?
if it's a law or an ordinance, it would require an ordinance revision.
Yeah.
If it's a policy, it could require a discussion and.
Yeah. But if it's a zoning ordinance, there's a procedure that is prescribed by the municipality's planning code with reference to zoning changes. So if there was something that council would like to see incorporated, if there's something that citizen would like to see incorporated, it would first end up going to the planning to the planning department and then to the planning commission. But there's a public hearing process involved in that.
So, for instance, if you had a large construction project going on in the township, and there was safety concerns or pre-site inspections and post-site inspections, and there may be dangerous conditions, that would go through planning, and you'd say the electrical facilities have to be secured safely to code and signed off on by the township. Also, the developer needs to be the ones bearing this expense and possibly having a contact person, because we still have conditions from our last one since October 22 that haven't been met, and our calls go unanswered.
I don't know exactly what you're referring to, Tony, but if you had problems with a safety concern or something like that, you would contact the township and we would look at it.
Numerous times. And
What is it you're talking about, Tony? Could you be clear?
well, I don't want to interrupt the agenda, but
It's the
that
tower.
last cell tower,
Yeah, it's the tower.
the last time, so not the current one, the last time, we allowed them to plug in and run, and the electrical grid, it was never closed off and secured. It was wide open for 3 months. I constantly called on that. Nobody did anything. It was 4th month before a secure facility and closed that. We don't want to see that happen again.
Part of what
And,
we're going to talk about tonight.
and if it wasn't for the neighborhood calling in about the collapsed road or the landscaping, and nobody's addressed the dead trees because they cut the roots, and we've sent messages everywhere, nobody's responded to any of that. I had to meet the landscapers myself on the street, and they did it at their own expense. So I think inside of zoning, we should require the developers to supply the flaggers, for instance, to do a pre-site inspection and a post-site before we allow them to power up and enter the grid. And I would like to see that in ordinance. I would also like to see projects of significant size have more than a 300-foot notification about that. I think that we should, council has to decide what is a significant project, but let's broaden that. We've talked about it for 4 years, but nothing's changed.
No, that's not true, Tony. For tonight's meeting, everyone within 600 feet of the project were notified.
And I think that's a mischaracterization, Paul. You've said that 3 times. It's 300 feet was the initial notification.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And if you have a public hearing, which I don't think this is a public hearing, it's an agenda item
Yeah.
on a council, then it goes to 600, but you keep using 600 when I'm talking about the initial, which is only 300. Am I incorrect?
Oh, no, I don't disagree with what you're saying. That's
So
what
I
the
would like to
policy calls
see
for.
a significant initial, a significant expansion of something that's visible for a couple miles. And I don't know how to get that done. We keep talking about it. And I think the last time you said if council asks for that to occur, then we'll work on it. Well, I'm asking for that to occur again. Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience?
Yeah, Bob Donnan, 107 Southview Court. I just wanted to say we had the biggest turnout of any Memorial Day parade that I've filmed over recent years. Real good turnout. And same for the VFW ceremony with the band and the fire department and the police and the whole shebang. It was quite a show. As far as roads, that 90-degree corner on Thompsonville has only gotten worse since Juniper Woods became populated.
Which one are you talking about? Which curve? Up at the...
It's at 90-degree, right before you hit Old Washington.
Oh, that one, okay.
Most people coming up around are across the line. Well, maybe not most, but a good number of them are across the line. And then finally, I just want to compliment Mr. Bonai for his professional work recording these meetings. These are like world class compared to what most townships don't record the meetings, but yeah, it's world class. All right.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing no other comments from the audience, unfinished business, we have none, so we'll move into new business. First item will be approval for recording purposes of the Mank Subdivision Plan Number 1. This is just
We're just
lot
moving.
lines moving and
You're taking a single parcel and you're dividing it into 5 lots. All of the lots are meet the township's requirements with regard to the subdivision regulations. The one thing that I would point out to you is this is the parcel of land that's going to come back to you. In fact, at the next meeting, there'll be a discussion concerning further subdividing this property across that small parcel at Timber Lake. So the other thing I think it's worth noting, in the plan, and this exists currently, although it's one parcel, there's multiple homes on this parcel, and at this corner there is a shared driveway, and that shared driveway is going to continue to exist after the subdivision. That being said, they have access to McCombs Road, so the parcels are conforming. But this is that driveway that connects these two. And not to digress, but at the last meeting you had under consideration subdivision on Bower Hill Road, and having looked at that with Mark, one of the possibilities there to be able to subdivide the property is actually the creation of a shared driveway. The township has permitted that previously. There's quite frankly, there's no discussion of it in the zoning ordinance, but it's never been prohibited. So that's coming back to you at the next meeting. So, but I just wanted to show you this as an example of that occurring.
So is this is one big, huge parcel with multiple houses on it?
Yes, and those houses, I think, are older and probably precede any regulation in that regard, because we would not allow multiple primary uses on a single lot. There are actually 3 houses on this large parcel right now.
So they all taxed separately or no? They're taxed as
I'll be honest with you, I didn't go look. I'd be curious how they're taxed, because I don't know how you...
I can answer that for you.
Go for it.
Yeah,
Could you come up to the front, because
Absolutely,
otherwise
yes.
we don't hear you.
my name's Lynn Lutz. This is my parents' property, and my grandparents and my great-grandparents, which explains why all the houses are on this parcel. In the lower left-hand corner, there is an existing home that was the original.
Lower left-hand?
Lower left-hand where it says Lot 4. There's an existing home that was the original home.
Which this one?
The little cutout that you see along McCombs Road was my grandparents' house, and my brother back there currently lives there. The first house on the shared driveway was my mom's sister, and the last house on the shared driveway was my mom. So it was all in the family. They built
that's
the
not
homes.
uncommon. That's what I assumed it was. But
And this is, the last house was built in 1954, I believe, was when Mom and Dad built their house. And that was the last before. So that's how they all...
It precedes
Yeah.
zoning.
So currently, under the county's parcels, the home on Lot 4 is a separate parcel, but the 2 homes on
Lot 2.
Lot 2 and Lot 3, and all in Lot 1 and all the rest of that parcelway, that currently exists on a single parcel as well. So there's only 2 parcels there right now.
so it's the Lot 4 and then everything else.
Exactly.
Is it clean and green?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Lutz, thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the subdivision plan as shown on lots prepared by Keystone Surveying and Mapping for Everett W. Jr. and Arlene Lutz, dated April 15, 2025, subject to the conditions listed in the manager's report.
Second.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries 5-0. Next item will be a building permit for the replacement of a cellular tower located on 120 Druid. That's where we'll need the recording to start there.
So Peters Township is in receipt of an application from AT&T to upgrade their existing wireless communication facility co-located on the electric transmission tower located at 120 Druid Drive. A complete application was received on April 15th, thereby starting the 90-day review process, meaning Peters Township must act upon the application by July 14th, 2025. The cell site that's proposed replicates the cell site installed at this location by Verizon. It involves the installation of a monopole that supports an antenna array, as well as serving as a conduit for the coax cable. So one of the things, if this project goes ahead, that it will address is this set of coax cables that have snaked around the tower currently. In addition, well, as requested by council, the 59 property owners within 600 feet of 120 Druid Drive have been notified of tonight's agenda item. We've received written comments from 3 individuals, and those comments fall into 2 categories. One is the health impacts of radio frequency emissions, and the second is the impact of the neighborhood during construction. The township employs the services of Cohen Law Group, a special counsel for matters related to cable franchise and wireless communication facilities. The Cohen Law Group represents municipalities in this area across the state of Pennsylvania. Mr. Smith and I engaged in a conversation with Mr. Cohen regarding the township's ability to regulate the location or design of the wireless communication facilities based upon health concerns related to radio frequency emissions. There is in your docket a memo from Mr. Cohen that talks to this. But in short, what Mr. Cohen says is that given the laws and regulations described, the scope of the township's legal rights with respect to the regulation of wireless facilities based upon radio frequency emissions is extremely narrow. The township is permitted to make inquiries to wireless providers such as AT&T with respect to the radio frequency emissions of a proposed facility and to require a written statement showing that the facility is in or will be in compliance with the regulations established by the FCC. And on your desk tonight, there is a letter from AT&T to that effect. He goes on to say that the township may not, however, deny an application for a wireless facility based upon concerns over radio frequency emissions when the proposed wireless facility has been shown to be in compliance with the FCC requirements. Any such denial would constitute a violation of federal law, likely to lead to legal challenges by the wireless provider seeking to deploy or upgrade the facility. In the end, legal liability of the township. The township also may not impose any additional requirements related to radio frequency emission. What I do think is noteworthy is at the beginning of his letter, he makes the statement, please note that given that as lawyers and not scientists, our law firm does not address the health effects of these emissions, but rather the legal authority of the township to regulate them. And it's my suggestion that if people have concern with regard to radio frequencies emissions, those concerns should be addressed to the Federal Communication Commission, whose job it is to regulate radio frequencies emissions. And the way to do that is either directly to the Federal Communication Commission or Congressman Rushtenthal or our state senators. And in fact, Senator Fetterman actually sits on the subcommittee that addresses wireless communications. The township does have the ability to reasonably to establish reasonable conditions regarding the building permits and the use of the roadways. And part of the issuing of the building permit, it's Mark and my recommendation that the following conditions be established, and that the first is that at least 2 weeks prior to the commission commencement of construction activities, that there be a pre-construction meeting so that we can go over and understand the construction schedule and the methods of operation. If there are road closures on Druid Drive will occur, and this may well be the case because of the sighting of a crane, the contractor will provide written notice of the closures to all homes on Druid Drive where the road intersects Fireside Drive at least a week prior to the closures. Delivery of a letter to the township certifying that the tower meets the FCC regulations. That in fact is what you have tonight. The application to inform staff 2 weeks prior to the start of construction so that provide the township with an opportunity to inspect and document pre-construction conditions. The applicant to post a bond in the amount of $10,000 to ensure appropriate repairs of the township roadways and other impacted areas as determined by the township engineer. And then the applicant should be required to work with township staff to develop appropriate amounts and types of traffic control while construction is occurring. In addition to this, it's my recommendation that council, during the period of construction, create a temporary no parking zone. You know, one of the problems we had last time was the parking of construction vehicles along the edge of the roadway, and this sits at a vertical curve, which makes it difficult to get around when those cars are sitting there. The advantage of it being a no parking zone would be that the police would have the ability to ticket and tow if there wasn't compliance. You do have people here from AT&T that can speak to what their intent is if you want to hear from them.
I don't know who's here from AT&T.
Paul, one of the conditions that I thought was necessary that the township have is a design calculations that the structure as being modified and proposed is designed in compliance with codes and
The application includes already a structural analysis that was provided that is sealed by a structural engineer.
I would like to see that.
Okay.
Isn't that what's in the
You may
document?
well have it. It's in the document, I believe.
It's in the document.
It's on page 41.
Does somebody from AT&T wish to speak? They're all pointing at you.
And will this be sworn or unsworn?
Sworn.
Should be sworn.
Just swear and mask?
Yeah, if we could do that, that'd be best. Anybody who
Okay, so if anybody
wishes.
plans on testifying tonight, having anything to say, would you please raise your right hand to be sworn? Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this public and public hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Melissa Cook. I'm here representing Diamond Communications, AT&T Wireless, and West Penn Power regarding the AT&T installation on the West Penn Power transmission tower located on Druid Drive. Diamond is the managing agent for all installations on First Energy assets, and we have been working with AT&T throughout this entire process. So as I said, AT&T is currently installed on the transmission tower number 155, located between 120 and 122 Druid Drive. AT&T has received approval from both the property owner and First Energy to complete the service upgrades to this site. The team is here tonight to request approval for a lane and a road closure of Druid Drive during construction. And I have a gentleman here who will hand out some papers. Some may be duplicates of what you already have, but this will help further supplement our presentation.
Thank you. Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Of course. Well, no, I don't.
I mean, I don't profess to know anything about this, but does AT&T have, is that their whole facility there? Because wasn't there somebody else that went on?
So the installation on the left, so first, this is a West Penn transmission.
Well, I
tower.
understand that.
They own that tower. They will forever own that tower. The installation on the left is Verizon Wireless. They installed back in the fall of '22.
Right.
And kind of just the start of our discussions on this site.
Oh, I remember. I think you were here actually.
I was.
At some point after, yeah.
And then the installation on the right is AT&T. They are looking to upgrade that site and kind of help with the cable issue of it going back and forth across the tower.
Well, the question I had, I don't know if you can answer this or not, and I might be completely off base, but AT&T sent a letter about, and I don't know if you've seen this or not, but it's talking about these RF exposures and things like that, and it says that they're in compliance. But does that take into account the Verizon equipment and system, or is that just limited to what AT&T equipment is going to generate or generates?
That is a great question. I do not have that answer. I don't know. It's very important to get that. It would be cumulative? It is cumulative of
Okay,
both
so
the
it would be-
Verizon and
it would be
AT&T
both.
frequencies.
Okay, so both, okay. That was a question I had because,
Based on the current 12 for AT&T or the projected for the 36 that they're asking for.
So that really has. You know, what, if anybody's speaking, that they're going to need to come to the front.
So what we're going to do right now, so that I have a clean record, you, should I have your name, please, in the suit coat?
Tom Proctor, AT&T
I'm sorry?
Construction. Tom Proctor, AT&T Construction.
And
Okay.
I believe your name was Tony. You were next.
Tony Brown, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And then Miriam to the left.
Oh, sorry, legal.
Oh, no, but the.
I'll wait till I hear what he says.
Yes, if
She'll
he's
remember.
any proposed,
that's the question.
if he needs anything for proposed site, any upgrades.
I'm confused. What are we talking about, sir?
You asked me what.
Hold on 1 second. Remember, there's a court reporter here. Mr. Brown, I don't care if you ask questions, but come up here to do it.
Yeah, he was talking.
I understand.
didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, this is
Like usual, I don't know what's going on.
That's okay. Let the chairman run the
Tony, hang on for a
presentation.
minute. You guys,
Can I just finish?
presentation, please just wrap it up.
Okay, so it'll be quick. So the scope of the work will include the removal of AT&T's coax, the antennas, and the antenna platform. So that entire right side of the tower will be clean. And then AT&T will install a new steel insert, which will mimic exactly what Verizon has.
Okay.
They will install 6 antennas, 12 TMAs, and a new antenna platform. The antennas will be installed at the same height as the existing antennas, and the cables will route underground from the base station to the base of the new insert, and then up inside the insert to the antenna platform. So it's going to represent exactly what Verizon has here. And then the existing wooden fence around the ground equipment will be removed and replaced with a white PVC fence. So an electrical outage is required to safely install AT&T's equipment on the transmission tower. An outage will be requested for the 3rd week of September, as it is outside of the high heat of summer. Due to the increase of demand during summer, First Energy does not permit outages during the summer. And I just want to note that all outage requests are managed by PJM Interconnection, which is a third-party entity who coordinates the movement of electricity throughout all or parts of 13 states across the Mid-Atlantic, including Pennsylvania. And no outage is ever guaranteed, and First Energy and PJM reserve the right to cancel an outage at any time up to and including during a granted outage. I just point this out because if for whatever reason during the outage and during construction, if the outage is rescinded, we would then have to stop construction and additional time would be required. So the construction schedule, which is also in your handouts, is estimated for about 7 weeks. The first 4 weeks will include site prep, civil work, and the foundation installation. 2 weeks are attributed to the tower and antenna work, and then 1 week for restoration and cleanup. The tower and antenna work will require a lane closure and a road closure of Druid Drive. The lane closure is a 1-day event for the concrete truck to deliver and pour the foundation for the insert. This is projected for week 2 of construction. And then the road closure will be a minimum of 5 days during week 5 of construction to decom the existing site and replace it with the new site. The handouts I provided do include a traffic plan for both the lane closure and road closure. There is also an image of the road closure zone, which ensures 24/7 access to all driveways surrounding the construction zone from 119 to 122 Druid Drive. The contractor will provide written notice to all residents on Druid Drive a minimum of 1 week prior to the lane and road closure. And when the crane is not in use, it will be located within that road closure zone and will be surrounded by barricades with amber lights and signage to notify any travelers along Druid Drive to ensure safety and safe passage. Thank you very much. As we all know, I have representatives from AT&T and our contractor, JW Dado, to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony?
So, Melissa, if you don't mind, if I can ask you a couple of questions. You're still with Diamond?
I am.
So when you were saying AT&T's building, it's AT&T's project, but you're the developer, construction agent?
No.
No, who's actually doing
Diamond
the
is
work?
the managing agent for First Energy. So we ensure that any work done on a First Energy asset is done in compliance with all regulations, rules, First Energy requirements to ensure the safety of everyone.
So would you commit?
Let me finish. AT&T is responsible for the construction of this site under our guidance.
So from my perspective, the last one was administered by whoever, and I know that you and Scotty came out, we talked. One of our failures was responsibility and getting feedback. Will you commit to appointing somebody that we can contact and address issues with? And also do a pre and post-site inspection that we are in compliance, that we have a safe running facility. If you go up there now, it's still terrible, the landscaping. Across the street, Mrs. Revish has contacted all of you and Diamond and said, what about my trees? We had open trenches for 3 months. We had an unsecure mechanicals for 3 months. Nobody was answering questions.
Well,
I want to be able to answer.
to correct that,
Okay.
yes, I was here in 2023, and we corrected all of the outstanding issues. The only issue that was remaining that was not addressed was the rerouting of the cables that we are now addressing at this point with AT&T's upgrade.
Melissa, I had to show you the road. Other people had to show you the road, yes, but it was incumbent upon us as residents. Nobody from Peters Township came out until we as the residents pointed this out. Nobody was talking about the wide open trench other than us. Nobody was talking. Do you think it's a good, safe practice for a company to have an open generation mechanicals that anybody can walk into? It was not safe and secure, yet somehow we allowed it to be plugged in and operate. Will you commit that that won't happen, that you will not power it up and operate until it's safe and secure?
AT&T, First Energy, and Diamond will commit to whatever is required by the township.
So that you didn't answer that question as a yes or no?
I think we're just.
I can't answer things that
She can't answer that, and, you know, quite frankly, I find that you're like, it's like an inquisition here. I mean, the woman's here, she's trying to do.
Do you want to trade houses, Frank?
Yeah, really.
I don't want to trade houses.
I know you don't.
I know.
Nobody in here wants to, yet we're the problem. The victims
You're
are
not the problem. I'm just saying that, you know, tearing into her isn't going to get us
I
from
was
point A to
tearing into somebody by asking them to make it sure it's safe and secure.
I don't know
Why
if
is
she
that
can
a
mind
negative?
all those entities.
Why don't you appoint a person that will handle problems?
And
Why is it the
represent
township's
constituents.
responsibility to go out and document pre and post conditions? Why don't you guys require a
Well, that's what we're going to get to. That has nothing to do with.
That is on our conditions this time. Conditions for the issuance of the permit will be a pre-construction meeting. I don't see a post-construction, but we are going to hold a bond though.
Yes.
10,000 for the road.
I was going to bring that up. I'm not sure that's high enough, but.
And maybe, Mr. Chairman, maybe we can hear from some of the construction people that can get maybe more specific, Tony.
If you could just say, what's a public right-of-way? It was .6. What is the definition of that?
It's a 50-foot stretch of 25 foot on either side of the...
Any side of our road?
Right.
Okay.
That may be 40 up there, Paul, that's an old development, I don't know if it's 50, but
I'm sorry, that may be for you up there, Paul.
It may be 40 up there because it's an older development.
I have a quick question. the height of
Do you name?
State your name and
Oh,
sign
yeah,
the seat.
Diane DeChickas.
She's probably going to use spell
Can you
it.
spell the last name?
I will, just a minute, let me get this down. DE, capital CHI, CCHIS, DeChickas. The height, does it have to be a certain height before it falls under the FAA regulations and everything? Or FCC, whatever, thank you.
Well, that's two different things. If there is and I can't tell you off the top of my head what it
Yeah.
is, but there is a height that's established by the FAA for what's that?
It's 200 feet.
Yeah, for air
That's what I
traffic
thought.
control.
So is this 200 feet?
No.
So when you say you're going to follow the regulations, what regulations are we following?
So you're talking about following the regulations of the Federal Communication Commission, who regulates the installation of cellular towers.
But does that fall under this then?
Yes, it
So
does.
that's what they will be following?
Yes.
Okay, because that was confusing to me, so I wanted to make sure.
If I could, we also file with the FAA.
Okay.
And we also have
And then-
compliance with the FAA to also meet, because 200 foot is a cutoff for lighting.
Yeah, okay.
There is guide paths and everything else, so we do file with the FAA and have FAA approval to put it up there.
Okay.
So
And then
at what point do you get FAA approval? Before us, or you already have it?
Always, every
I
Sunday.
mean, do you have it now?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, and then my next question
And can I
is,
interrupt, please? And your name again?
Tom Proctor, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you got it?
I just have to.
Yeah, it's not
Person
objective.
speaking.
So my next question is, we were told at the beginning, before this mess started, there was one cord going up, and it would only be unplugged, maintenance done, replugged, that kind of thing. Okay. And it keeps growing. It keeps growing. Now we're told there's going to be another, dozen cords being added, more cell, more cell. At what point do you stop? And at what point do you say, we've added, we still have poor service, and we get into the definition of insanity?
Well, so everything new from a view shed perspective will all go up through that tower.
Yeah, they're adding more.
But her question is with regard, your application indicates that there'll be additional coax cable
Correct.
added to the antenna. Can you explain why that is?
Yes, to cover FirstNet with some new frequencies we obtained. Okay, why we need the extra coax.
But then more will be added. And more will be
I
added.
can't say.
One at a
yes or
time.
no in the future, whether anything more will be added, whether more frequencies will be added. The purpose of the tower is to try to contain all the coax inside. So again, from a view shed perspective, it won't change. So I'm not sure what the number of coax make a difference, in the overall scope.
And therein lies the problem. And I don't mean to make you upset and people yell. And I'm trying to be very patient, and I hope you all agree that when I do talk up here, I try to be very respectful. But it's been like almost 3.5, 4 years. And we get nowhere. And no one seems to care. And the insanity that goes on around this tower in a residential area, houses are very close. And I have to say, I don't know if any of your people that work there, they've all been very nice, and we always offer water and restroom if they need it. But how patient do we have to be?
Well,
Because we have several illnesses in the area, and we don't know when it's going to stop.
Well, the reason that we're doing this is because the township and feedback we got for the township, is my understanding, was concerned about the view shed of the coax. That's why we're back here in front of you, this project to begin with, that we were asked at AT&T through our external affairs to try to come in and mitigate the visual impact of this. So we agreed to a pretty costly tune of probably over $250,000 to come back and do this project to try to assist the township in curing the view shed issue that had been raised to us. And that's the reason we came back and made this project.
But one second. One second. Let's be clear. It isn't the township asking AT&T to come in.
Right.
AT&T made an application prior to this application, which in fact identified that there would be more coax cable, which would again strung along that course. And when we saw that, we understood and rightly so, that the neighborhood would have a problem with even taking that was perceived as an eyesore and making it worse. And that's why when they wanted to come back in, the suggestion was you ought to consider doing something to contain those cables.
Can you put the other picture up, please, Paul? Mr. Talker, I don't know who approved this.
Look at that.
So let's please not act like we're just coming in at a request to clean this up. The first thing that I identified with Mr. Robinson and Mr. Greenwood, the First Energy, is they don't have to approve these, no matter what anybody does. Number two, you guys could have done it from the beginning in not such a manner. Anybody looking at that this was wrong. It was insane. So regardless of whether Mr. Frizzell signs a new contract that extends your rights, right? It isn't a one-sided deal. Maybe it shouldn't have been like this. Maybe somebody should use common sense.
And it's going to
by the
work.
way, it was a Verizon install. They didn't even know that congratulations, AT&T got snuck in on a Verizon deal. And that was the one cable. We end up with 12, and I would like an answer.
And they're adding more. And it's going to go
36.
on.
Got to have one person talk at a time.
36, so the RF emissions, if you can clarify, are we going to talk about AT&T, RF only, not Mr. Arturi's comment about the combo? So let's get the RF emissions today and then projected where it will be with 36. There's got to be a parameter somewhere that says this is getting out of compliance, but we don't know that.
Can I confirm that there are only 26 cables proposed for AT&T's installation? So there will only be 26 cables installed. They will all route inside of the power mount insert.
The data we got says 36.
Yeah.
I have the structural. The structural is the binding document. We have to match what's in this structural. So that is what's being proposed.
And
That's not in the planning department.
yeah. And if you see the road where all this goes on, with all that heavy equipment, and, you know, it's not one day, it's not two, it's not a van with a clipboard, you know, guy. It's heavy duty stuff, and we got to put up with it.
Diamond doesn't want to. Will AT&T commit to having a liaison that works with us? For instance, like the energy shutoffs and so forth. You guys don't know the road real well. All of us have burned out all of our electrical equipment because of our power problems. We've all replaced multiple pieces of equipment multiple times. We would like to be notified so we can turn our breakers on and off when the power's going to get shut down and when it's going to get turned on. That would be helpful.
Do you guys plan to have a liaison that can work with?
Yes, of course. We're happy to.
Is Mark he's going to be the point man on this? Yeah. If you
Yes,
guys-
he is.
Wait, there's two marks.
Somebody's coming in on a business reason. Why is it our expense?
Yeah, you
Why
guys
isn't the
should be paying.
flaggers assigned?
Well, they will be.
No, we're not paying
They
for
will
that.
be there.
Right, the pre-inspection, the post-inspection, all this,
It
that
has to
should be
be
on them.
It has to be us.
Yeah, do you really want to trust? I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
do you wanna
With your
trust somebody?
sign-off, with council sign-off, that we can power this thing up, that it is now safe, we don't have open trenches, we don't have open electrical grid,
And I think that's the
we
reason.
put the road back in.
Yeah, the bond is going to be our security there.
And I just don't understand, that there's
And who am I
hills
talking
everywhere.
What's that?
There's hills all
Nobody
over the
answers.
place. Why does it always have to come back to Druid Drive, in the middle of a residential neighborhood? Why?
It was just like chosen years ago, and that's
And then
it's where
you
it
never
is.
go anywhere else. That's it.
That's it.
And it keeps growing, and it keeps growing.
I don't know if it will continue to grow, I don't know.
Well,
I have no,
That's what
I
we're
have no
doing.
indication of the future. I can tell you what it is today.
And I would suggest to council, please, in the future, in dealing with this kind of stuff, that it should not only go to the people living on that side of the monstrosity and on the other, but across the street, where they've lost trees and they've had property damage, you should have to ask them too to give the okay. Have some kind of ordinance if we can do that in the future. We're looking in the future because this is a lot of heartache for a lot of people. We're talking about property values too. You know, do we come to you when we try to sell a home and we can't get the market price because of that? I don't know, I'm asking. So this is what we're dealing with. We should be able to include other people directly across the street, around it, to give the okay for them to come in and do these things.
Didn't you give notice to 600 people?
No, that's not what she's
I'm-
asking. You know, Mr. Frizzell has entered into a lease, and that's what makes this all possible. I don't think you can require AT&T or Verizon to enter into leases for property they're not using on the other side of the street.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you
Yeah.
said.
But it affects people across the street. Just everything they do, it rips up the entire area there.
So does the gas company when they...
Yeah, I know, but they don't do the damage that they do.
It isn't when they leave either.
And it's-
They're in here
and they're
5
bad.
times a year shutting down the road with maintenance upgrades, warranties. We're calling the police department because in the dark, the Verizon guy decided he didn't want to work in the morning. He came out 9:30 at night after we already had a burglary, and he's running around. This is a continual thing. It isn't just construction. It is after it's installed. We live with it 24/7.
Yeah, Tony, that's something we're going to have to discuss outside of what we're doing right here.
No, I'm just placating to Frank that it isn't during the install.
Yeah, I just...
It's all the time.
I understand that.
Yeah, and in the future, to protect your constituents from a lot of stuff that we've been going through, you have to think about giving more people a final say on whether or not they're allowed to lease that area and ruin properties
Stop putting
around them
residential
too.
areas.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And especially when we can't get any answers. You know, we don't know what's going on. And we do worry about property values.
Nobody
And
answers
I don't know, is
emails
there
or
anyone
calls.
else in this room would love to have that sitting in their front yard, you know? I mean, I don't see us as being out of line. We're just asking to be treated fairly and considered. So, I mean, I hope we can come up with some idea to avoid this in the future. And I wish somebody, AT&T, Verizon, the whole shebang, somebody could find another hill. Because if you're still putting up wires and cells and people are still complaining about their coverage, maybe that's not such a good idea to have it there. Maybe there's another hill nearby that might do a better job. Just throwing out ideas. Thank you very much for putting up with us.
You indicated earlier, ma'am, that you had somebody that is going to perform the construction activities with you as well.
Yes, JW Didado.
Is it possible we could hear from him or her to explain a little bit about the process?
So you need my name? My name's Adam Murdoch. M-U-R-D-O-C-K.
I'm sorry, the company?
JW Didado, D-I-D-A-D-O, Electric. So what questions did you guys have?
First of all, are you the individual? Is it your company that will be out on this particular site?
I'm the superintendent, so I'll be in charge of the site, and one of my crews will be the one there for the duration of the construction.
Okay.
So will you be there yourself?
I'll be there on and off. I oversee several crews in several states, but I live relatively close. I'm within an hour, so I will be on site periodically, especially during lane closures, road closures, what we would consider higher risk or bigger impact events. I would be on site for all that.
And maybe part of the confusion in the past has been there's a number of different entities. They may be calling AT&T or West Penn, and maybe they should be reaching out to you. And I think the chairman asked before, is there some point person for someone who's going to be there on site that the neighbors can physically see and don't even have to make a phone call?
Yeah, I know when we were on site before, several of the neighbors talked to the foreman that was on site every single day. We talked to the lady that has Verizon on her side of the structure, and I know she communicated with him on several different issues, questions, things like that. She actually let us park our trailer in her yard. She brought those guys cookies. So there is a foreman on site that they can talk to if they have an issue. Now, if it's a major issue, he would more than likely escalate that to me, and then, I would deal with it, but there is going to be a...
Could you make a commitment that you'll have him, like, visit at least 8, 10 houses in every direction, introduce himself, give us his business card?
One of the stipulations.
We didn't have that.
Yeah, one of the stipulations up there was visiting houses to notify them of the lane closure and the shutdown. So we'll be visiting every house on Druid Drive during construction.
Yeah, I would like your one contact person that I can say when they collapse my wall, the next time they back a truck up on it, that I can talk to him and get some activity out of it.
Yeah,
and responsibility.
Right now, construction is far enough out that we don't have a specific foreman assigned to it.
I didn't ask for it today, but
yeah,
you think you'll have one?
Yeah, there will be somebody on site.
Will you please get that to all of us?
I can do my best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And you're aware, did you work on this site in the past?
Yeah, I was with Did Auto whenever they did the work in 22, but I wasn't the main person in charge of the site now.
And consistent with that, did you close the road necessarily, I guess, as well during that time?
Yeah, it had to be closed for the crane. We're basically mirroring what Verizon has already on the left side of the structure if you're looking at it from the road. So construction will be, as far as constructing the insert, it'll be exactly the same that we did for Verizon.
Depending on the size of the crane, is there any issues with first responders getting through that area?
So the way it'll be set up, there will be detour signs on both sides of Fireside. So before they would ever turn on Druid Drive, they would know that Druid Drive would be closed down in the middle there.
And Gary, what was that due to time?
Well, we're going to require notification to the township, so I would assume that Mr. Flowers would notify the public.
This wouldn't be the first road that has a closure like that, and there is easy access from either side.
And I believe it's in the packet. The way we have it planned, we'll keep every driveway open through the entirety of it, so nobody will have any restricted access at any point during construction.
There was some testimony before about an individual maybe working after hours. Do you recall, or do you know, aware of our ordinance's 7 to 7 construction activity hours?
I believe they were talking about the Verizon tech that was there at night, and more than likely he was responding to a site issue like a shutdown or an outage. And that's usually how they respond to them. Whenever it goes down and they start to lose coverage, they respond pretty quick.
It was not, sir. He had a routine maintenance item.
Tony, we let the guy finish what he's saying before you interrupt him.
Well, I wouldn't want him to continue on with 2 paragraphs of information that was incorrect, so I stopped that for your behalf too.
Okay,
no, he did routine maintenance.
Tony, will you let him talk?
Okay.
You can have your say when he's done. I mean, this is just getting out of control. Just let the guy
you're
talk.
part of that process,
No, I'm
right?
not. I'm just let the guy talk.
I'm done.
We're trying to make a record
When
here.
you do talk, come up so that she can hear you.
So I was just guessing what the Verizon tech was there based on the time leaving. But for us, we are aware of those, you said 7 to 7. We do not have any issues at all, especially once you get into that time of year. You don't have daylight until 7 o'clock in the morning. It's usually down by 6 o'clock. So, we don't like to do this work in the dark. So 7 to 7 is not going to be an issue for us.
Was there any issues at the last installing that pole? Any issues in terms of ground issues, stability?
No, not that I'm aware of.
And I think your council indicated it's about a 7-week project.
Yeah, from start to finish with the groundwork, the actual installation on the structure, and then at the end, the cleanup, the landscaping, things like that. From start to finish, that's about what we're looking at.
Now, there was some testimony, or you heard from the citizens about their concerns of how the site was left in terms of open trenches. Can you explain to council what that might have been and why? If you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. The only guess I could have is whenever they trench for the power and the communication, the trench wasn't done. And typically, if we do have to leave a trench open, it's short term. It might be, they get 3/4 of it done one day and finish it the next morning, but we do barricade and make sure that that's appropriately marked anytime we do have to leave a trench open overnight.
Okay, and is it, I know the testimony, and Mr. Brown, I can see him shaking his head, but I think it was open for a significant period of time to cause some concern. Just to assure council and the citizens that that's not going to happen this time.
On this site, there's already power. Verizon was a new build. There was no Verizon site there before, so we had to install power from the source. This one, it's an existing AT&T site, so power and telco are already there. Our trenching is about 20 feet from that tower leg to where the existing conduit comes underground. So there's not the level of trenching on this project that we had when we were here in 2022 and 2023 doing the Verizon work. So 20 feet is relatively easy to open up, do your work, and then close, backfill and close back in one day.
Other than the township, is there any other agency, federal or state, that's looking at engineering or structural components associated with this tower and co-location?
First Energy works specifically with Paul J. Ford and Company. They're out of Ohio. They are the engineer of record, and they ensure that the installation is meets First Energy standards and the National Electrical Safety Code. So they are under stricter restrictions than a normal cell tower build would be.
Is there any other inspectors that would come out after completion to determine structural stability? I'm not sure, we have that person on staff that's going to go out and say, yeah, this co-location looks as though it's structurally sound.
So at the end of construction, we prepare a closeout package that is submitted back to First Energy. They review it and approve it to ensure that we've done everything we require to do.
So when you're applying to, I think FAA was just height, and FCC, it's just maybe wattage or area. There's nobody else out there other than when the township gets a building permit looking at your engineering drawings.
Correct. There's no one else.
Okay.
Did you say your name was Adam, sir?
Yes.
So 121 and 123 Druid, we have the power box that is already, we've been saw cut and tied into. That was where the trench was. It was open for a very long time, no barricade. Do you ever see them needing to do that since you already have existing power?
According to the drawings for this project, we do not need to trench into that box.
Excellent. So the only other thing that I wanted to cover with you, the powering on and powering off, will we all be notified to that timing?
Well, just to clarify, when First Energy takes an outage on a transmission tower, your power is not affected at all. They reroute the power differently.
So when you were talking about this, it wasn't about the homes getting powered
No,
out?
no, just the...
Okay.
The overhead, yeah.
Yeah, the transmission line you see there behind you, you can actually see that looks like the yours screenshot. That's off right now. You can see there are grounds on all three conductors.
Okay.
So that's when we say outage, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about residential.
So the homes aren't going to get you.
Not the homes. It's just the transmission from substation to substation.
Thank you.
Do you have to de-energize when the cranes are there?
Yes.
Yes.
For how long?
We requested 2 5-day outage windows.
Oh, so that's the whole time that the cranes
Yeah.
are there? Okay. I thought there was a separate time beyond that. Does council have any questions?
Yep. I'll try to be orderly. The design calculations and presentation of the material here are done by 3 separate engineers, okay? Or at least they're stamped by 3 individuals in an EIT. I don't understand this massed lack of a foundation drawing and how it ties into and is supported into the existing tower. I would be happy to talk to your engineers and have my questions answered.
Right there.
You're pointing to something against the wall, sir?
Jim Steinwagner, Diamond Communications. So the engineers design it. There are attachment points from the tower, from the pole structure to the tower, that are designed by an engineer and signed off.
What I'm looking at is the information that's been given to me. I don't see a foundation for this mast that goes up. It says, see note 1. There's more information about the foundation for the fence than there is on that.
There should be what we call an erection book that includes that.
I would insist on seeing that before I am satisfied.
You won't be satisfied with the 2 brackets that co-locate.
It's in the handout. I can point it out to you if you'd like.
Please, if you would.
What page?
So it's in the Sabre Industries.
Page 1 of 1. It's a couple of pages in. PMF 00013. So Power Mount Foundation installation.
Sorry, it says what foundation?
Power Mount Foundation installation.
Notice when it's not in your pile, you can get one. So,
Jim?
I don't have that document, okay?
so there you go.
WAGA.
Nobody called T-Mobile.
Did you find it?
I gave
Somebody gave you it. Okay.
It wasn't his stack somehow, so it's okay.
Look for the brackets too, Mr. Lewis.
Well, how is the load, the lateral load of this post transferred into the tower?
You said 113.
So to be clear, I'm not an engineer, but there are what we call collars on the insert,
I see that.
and then there are steel angles that go from that collar back to the tower leg itself.
You don't transmit horizontal loads into a vertical without other diagonals going into it. I'm not satisfied with it. I am an engineer. This is my business, okay? I'm not an electrical tower person, but I'd be happy to talk to your design people and let them explain my concerns.
We can set up a call with Paul J. Ford.
That would be fun. If, Mark, you'd like to be involved in it, then I think that's probably appropriate too.
And that's why I asked the question. I kind of got the feeling we were in terms of reviewing the structural stability of that.
And there's 3 different engineers that have looked at it, and it's like they're all passing the buck to somebody else.
And sir, I imagine that you've built these types of structures on other co-location areas.
Yes.
And have you had any issues with these in terms of stability or having to, reset them, whether foundation have failed or the way they tie off?
We've not.
Laura has done.
Well, I have a question, because I was originally told you can only use it on existing locations. And then we were surprised one morning when they brought that big pole, and they put it up, and they used 2 little brackets to connect it and say, well, that's part of the existing location. So you're seeing now another pole's coming in, and that's going to be also part of the existing location. And how many poles do we get to add and still consider it existing location? I mean,
There will be another pole that will mimic the Verizon on the other side. Yeah, so there will just be 2, one on either side. There will never be another carrier on this tower.
never say never, because you don't know.
Yes,
And
yes.
that means it went from
After 15
existing
years, I know there will
I'm
never be
sorry.
another.
One speaking
Sorry.
at a time.
So that, I'm just so I'm clear, an existing location is one thing. But that also means that we can bring other brackets and now just add to it, and that's still an existing, I don't get that. Why are we allowed to keep on adding to it? And when does that stop? I just see this ever growing. It's really frustrating. Does anybody else, I mean, I'm looking at this, it's growing.
What we're changing is the way the antennas mount to the
By
transmission
adding
tower.
to the existing location.
So yes,
There
AT&T
you go.
is currently installed on the transmission tower. They've been there for years. All we're doing is changing the way that the antennas are mounting the tower.
I get all that. I'm just
So-
saying, you're adding, you're making it bigger.
But we're
It wasn't
also-
like that when we moved into the neighborhood. It's bigger. It's getting bigger, and you're adding more to it. I don't think that's right. I don't think that was the original, the way it was initially set up with the township and the original plan. And I know the township has the picture of the original plan that looks nothing like this.
Was the antenna you're going to put up there now going to be any larger than the one that's there now, currently? No? Okay.
Different, though.
It's still
Shape
different, it's still adding.
Well, it's hard to tell from these drawings.
Well, the initial drawing looks nothing like that was okayed by this council. I think you're taking advantage of them. And I think we should do everything we can to stall this and make sure they do it right.
That's on
I don't think did we approve anything last time? I thought that
There's a building permit that just like there's a.
But it didn't come to council.
No. Well, building permits don't come to council.
This permit's not before you either.
Yeah.
We only found out about it afterwards.
Tonight is to get your direction as to what are the appropriate conditions to be placed on the building permit.
Can, one of the things I was wondering was whether the $10,000 bond was sufficient for us to cover any repairs.
That number's coming from Mr. Zabitis.
Make it what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, council needs to look at road, landscaping, potential other issues that the bond would seek to cover. So I think it would be higher.
You guys 50 is what you're asking?
I think at least 50. And what's $10,000 get you nowadays? No, it's not going to get you, that's not going to fix the pavement.
Well, you do have a clue on a number because we did the road repair the last time, so you can use
And
that
the
as
road
kind of a
repair
barometer.
last time cost $2,500.
Whatever you think, double it.
But it could have collapsed the water too.
So we had any discussions where the vehicles are going to be parked overnight?
That was something we hope to talk about tonight.
Well, let's talk about it then. Because the last time, as I recall, vehicles were left there overnight and, you know, we were having issues.
We are not opposed to we need to bring one vehicle up. We're going to have to find an off-site location where the guys can park their cars, and then one crew truck will bring them up to the site. And the plan would be for that truck to stay on the property.
Crossroads Church would probably love to work with you if you're going to compensate them. They have a large area down there off Thomas.
We can
And
certainly
they need
discuss it with
funds.
them, and thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah, they need funds.
I think another condition I would like to put on is, you mentioned there being a closeout report when you guys are done. I'd like the township to be in receipt of that prior to release of any bond.
Okay.
There's a lot of things. I think there's a lot of things we need to put in there. We do this.
Would somebody repair Mrs. Revish's trees, please, from the last ball?
They couldn't be here tonight, they were on vacation, but yeah, they lost some trees.
And I'm sorry, you said Mrs. Ravish?
Rebish, Erin, Erin. And she's sent emails in to Diamond, Verizon, AT&T, and the council. She never got a response.
And we think the trees died because of the...
So you'll get in, Mr. Donovan can talk to the RF frequencies. I can tell you the two died because of getting their roots cut when they tied in the electrical and everything. We never got a response on that. Our two in the front yard immediately died after this array kicked in. And the oak we're still like this on. And it's like the biggest tree around.
You know what kind of tree it is, Tony?
The two out front, I do not. But nobody even gave her the courtesy of saying, we've got your email. That's why people don't come.
Yeah, I don't, it didn't come to us, Tony, because we never got an email from anybody about dead trees on Druid Drive.
Really?
Yep. Not that I
Okay,
recall.
I'll pull up.
Okay, please, because you know we read your emails, Tony.
Mr. Koster, you came to the house and walked the site with me. Mr. Tom walked the site with me. Mr. Steigel walked the site with me. I'm appreciative of those efforts.
So I'm not an RF expert, but I don't know that you can say definitively that the RF closed it to the drive.
We didn't say just that.
If you're talking about.
No, I mean, I think it should be pretty obvious what was damaged near the root.
Right. So Mr. Feigl, just so that we can move on, what do you want to set the bond at?
I think the number that Mr. Frank's saying is 50. I mean, I agree that 10 is way too low. You guys comfortable with 50?
Well, it cost $2,500 last time to fix the road. It's not, I think 50 ought to be sufficient.
Let's set it at 50.
Now, we're going to talk about this at some other point in time.
No, the intention was tonight was to set the conditions so that in fact.
Well, I think if we're going to set conditions, I think that the construction schedule should be supplied to everybody within 600, whatever that is, those people. And if it changes, they should get notice.
By the township or the applicant?
By the applicant. And if there's a contact person, their name should be on there. That clarifies, that takes care of two issues.
Well,
They'll know what the time frame is. If something changes, they'll know about it, and if they have an issue, they know who to call.
So Mr. Curry, the intention was to provide notice to everyone on Druid Drive as it intersects Fireside Drive, because these are the people during construction that'll be impacted if they attempt. That's, I think that makes more sense than some distance away, because some of these people might not be within that range.
Well, I just thought I thought that's what we did,
Right.
but I just think that they should know what's going to happen, or tentatively what's going to happen, and if it changes, to get notice that it's changing.
Okay.
I think we could work with that email and text blast as well that we have to keep people updated.
I think there also should be a condition that fire and police will be notified when Druid's going to be closed in the event there's an emergency up there on one of the houses, so they know which way to go up Druid.
And when we do road closures, that is typical to let fire and EMS and police know because of the issue. So we would call them for the road closure. They'd have the dates, that way they would know their access points based on house numbers.
Shanna, do you have anything you'd like to add? Any conditions? Bob?
I don't know that it needs to be in a condition. I'd like the courtesy of being able to talk to them.
Hold on.
That's why I didn't say it out loud.
I can't hear what Mr. Lewis is saying because you're all talking over each other. There's one speaker at a time.
I said, I don't know that it needs to be a condition, but I would like the courtesy of being able to talk to the engineer and satisfy myself with regard to these connections back into the tower, which are all designated within these drawings as saying by others, okay?
So who's going to arrange that?
I believe the young lady here.
I will take care of that.
And then you'll get Mr. Lewis's contact information.
Yeah, I'll coordinate with
Yeah, I
Mr.
can
Lauer.
handle that.
Well, you got any other conditions they want to add?
I'd just like to say, don't rush this. Let's really take.
Well, we're kind of under a time crunch.
Well, yeah.
If we don't act by...
They can agree to extend, can't they?
No, it has to be tonight.
No, it doesn't have to be
No, we have to
tonight.
approve or deny the permit by July,
Okay.
whatever, or it's automatically deemed approved.
Okay.
And then
With
there are
no
no conditions.
There are no conditions, right?
Yes, Mr. Murray.
Bill Merz, M-E-R-Z, 119 Druid Drive. I got a couple notes based on some things I heard tonight. Most of this discussion has been on construction installation. I have a couple questions based on some other comments I heard. Maybe it's in the dockets or the information you guys got, but I keep hearing about the environment. Is there a requirement that an environmental impact study be done on any installations done in the township?
The answer to that is no, and in this particular case, what our special counsel has told us is that you can't look at impacts to health on the basis of, as a basis for making a determination whether or not to issue a permit.
I think what you just said was, you answered kind of, or in a roundabout way, my question. I've heard this complies with the SEC regulations on RF.
Right.
Maybe that's in your docket.
Yes.
Now, is that information based on what is there now? Or what is going to be there after they put another 24, 12, whatever it is, cables in there?
No, I think they said it was
And
cable.
what is, and what
They said
is
it was-
that, and what is the effect on my health? I live right, I have to look at that thing every single time I come out of my driveway. It is not a pretty sight. You know, I even sent emails to Verizon and AT&T. I said, would you want this in your front yard? Yeah, they ignored me. I expected them to ignore me. But I don't expect you guys to ignore me because you're my constituents, or I'm your constituent, whichever way you want to look at it. And to get back to what Diane said, you know, if you're going to make that a I'm not using the expression from the petroleum industry, a tank farm, then why don't you consider purchasing all that property around it and making a tank farm?
You're turning the wrong direction because I don't control that. That would be a question for AT&T or Diamond Communications. The township's only role in this is to receive an application and to review that application in terms of the building permit and setting reasonable conditions for construction.
You said that you cannot put a limit or a condition on
I'm sorry,
RF
sir, you said that you
frequency,
cannot.
radiation.
She can't hear you when you're facing
Oh, I'm
this.
sorry.
Yeah,
Put a condition.
So-
You said
so-
something about, can you put a condition?
Yeah, Mr. Lowry said that you cannot put a condition on this permit relating to any of the radiation effects.
That's correct.
Okay, but how do, I mean, it could turn out to be a public health issue, and that's going to affect everybody in the neighborhood and everybody in the township because if things keep building. We're going to see more of these. As Diane said, there are many hills. I come down 79. I come out of South Point. There are two huge towers right at that exit that could have been used. Now, I don't know if this is AT&T to blame, if it's Verizon to blame, or if it's First Energy to blame. But why, as Diane said, why a residential neighborhood when you have many hills around here? That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience?
Mr. Lauer, could you bring up the
Bob,
AT&T?
you need to come up and state your name for the court reporter.
Okay. Bob Donnan, 107.
I'm sorry, Bob, what?
DONNAN, 107 Southview Court, McMurray, PA. Could you bring up, it was in the docket, the AT&T schematic of what the new tower will look like?
What the new tower will look like.
It's in tonight's docket. It's on about
I don't
page
have
30.
that schematic is not part of what I have on the PowerPoint, but what it will look like is that.
Well, I know I saw the schematic, but you can't bring up the docket?
I cannot.
Oh, okay. Well,
We
maybe
can,
council
it's just not
can.
in the docket, right?
So basically, you're going to have two towers.
That other picture would be better to explain.
Yeah.
So my question is, would that tower stand alone by itself without being hooked to that tower? I mean, is it structurally,
No.
it's not built like a monopole,
No.
freestanding monopole. It needs that support for that,
Yes.
from that infrastructure. Okay. So then the next question, if co-location's like a hall pass, could you put like 4 more towers right around that same,
No.
why not?
Because the actual transmission tower cannot support any additional loading.
Okay, so it
So
only
we are
supports
maxed out at two carriers.
Okay. So as far as the RF, EMF, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that comes off those things other than just RF, right?
I don't know, I'm not an
Yes.
engineer.
Okay, well, there is. So the question is, it's kind of like with the oil and gas industry. They build all these different air pollution sources, but they're all permitted, like egg slicer permitting. No one's ever looking at the cumulative effect of the combined. So someone touched on that with additional units, and in fact, that schematic I wanted Mr. Lauer to bring up shows that right triangular thing on top is bigger. So theoretically, you can add more cell mass on there, right?
The antenna mount, which is the triangular platform at the top,
Yes.
yes, that can hold more antennas.
So who?
But currently, AT&T is only proposing 6 antennas to be installed.
Okay. So
And they
who-
have 6 antennas now. They will remain at 6
So
antennas.
who dictates the limit of how many you can have and how much EMF and RF and all that's coming off of that?
AT&T radio frequency department would determine what equipment is needed on the tower to make the network work.
Yeah. Okay. In closing, I don't think 5G is what it's cracked up to be myself. I haven't seen any improvement.
It's got its shortcomings, yes.
Anybody else in the audience? Okay.
I would
For the,
only
for the reporter.
Well, I would only have a future comment.
Can you say your name for the reporter?
Ann Shaner, 123 Robin Hood. You know, we are a home rule community, so I don't know if people, because this is, you know, a pet peeve of mine. People live in this community and they don't understand that we do have a lot of power. We can stop these towers. We stopped them before, okay? And this one, we can't do anything about. This is a done deal.
Which one did we stop before?
Well, in Washington County, we stopped towers before.
Are you talking about the ones that we're going to go through Scenery Hill? and
Yeah,
run
it was a long time ago,
Yeah.
okay? So we can stop, we can do, you know this, you know that I did this with the gas industry, okay? And we were the first group to put an amendment on our ballot. So if people really don't want these towers in residential areas, somebody can go out there and get signatures based on the last gubernatorial race, okay? You have to get a certain percentage of the vote, and you go and get those signatures, and you make it, and you put it on the ballot, and have the people vote, no towers in residential areas, okay? Or whatever they want to do. But I'm sick of hearing about, you know, people complaining, and they've got the power, and nobody wants to do it. So that's all I have to say.
They're a public utility, yeah.
They're not a public utility.
Right, they're not a public utility, right.
Yeah, to comment on that though, Mrs. Shaner, we put out a notice 600 feet from the site and we only have 3 people.
I know, that's what I'm saying. You know, they have the power, and you know, so that's all I have to say. I mean, I did it, you know I did it. Well, I don't know who, I think some of you were here. I know Lewis was here when I did it.
Thank you.
You were here. You were here. Yeah, so.
It's everybody that's old, that's what you're saying.
She was 22.
That includes me too, but you know, it's just, there's so much power in this community and nobody wants to do it, so.
Yeah, I just was going to say, can you explain to the community about like how the location was chosen for the, because they're saying, you know, why can't you pick a different hill out of our township, really, you know, one was commented, but the reason why Druid Drive is ideal for the services of the towers, can you maybe explain that a little bit?
I was not involved in the original selection by Verizon's RF or AT&T's RF, so I cannot speak to their specific reasons. But in general, most municipalities require that we utilize existing infrastructure, which would be a transmission tower. So we have a transmission line that runs through Peters Township, and this particular tower worked best from an RF perspective.
Communicating with other towers to
Yes.
give Peters Township
To maximize the
residents
coverage, reduce the number of cell towers within the township, and utilize the existing infrastructure that's already there.
And that tower has been there already.
It's been there from
03.
Yeah.
No, are you asking about the
electrical tower? It's
Yeah.
been there from the what, 50s?
The 80s. So you all moved, like mostly everybody, or that whole street was developed around that tower.
Yeah.
And so when you all moved in, that tower was there, and then it's been added to, so that's your complaint, the additions. I'm just putting it out there for everybody because
Simmons Farm would have been a lot more expensive. That's the reason it's there. Plus, it was already there. The next tower over Simmons Farm, higher.
Tony, you need to come to
But
the
it would have
front.
been more expensive. They would have to put in a road.
I'm just, I guess, just clarifying, you know, just.
Yeah, and
if there are
that
any questions.
Simmons Farm is higher than we are, actually. It would have been more, I think it would have been better, because it's in the middle of the pasture, there's nothing else around it. But the thing that sticks with me is when they first came to the township and they showed the picture, it was just one wire, and this very small, so very unobtrusive. And that was all that they were supposed to do. And that's what they agreed to. And that's what we thought when we found out later that they had gotten the okay. And it's been growing ever since, with no end in sight. So that's why we're so upset about it.
That's what I just said.
Motion to close.
Well,
this or whatever.
Actually, all you need, because this is not a public hearing, all we need is direction from council as to what the proposed conditions are. But my sense of council is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's the 6 conditions that are up there, changing the $10,000 to $50,000, a requirement that we be provided a copy of their closeout report, that the construction schedule be provided to the people on Druid Drive between Fireside.
I think also you have a 7th condition that you don't have more about the temporary no parking zone.
And that would be a separate action that council would take at a later date.
Okay.
And we would establish that temporary no parking zone.
Okay.
But these would be the conditions they would have to do as a condition to get their permit.
What if Mr. Lewis is not happy with the engineering answers? That should be in there somewhere too.
I am not approving or reviewing anything more than trying to understand what they have submitted. If I have questions, I will challenge their professional engineer, and it'll be up to them.
Whether they follow your suggestions.
I'm not the engineer of record.
Yeah.
I will not be.
I appreciate you looking out for us.
All right, I'll make a motion that we direct the township manager to condition the issuance of the building permit on the conditions quoted by Mr. Lauer.
Second.
Okay, motion to second on that. Any further discussion from the council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0 there.
Thank you, people.
You're good. You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Payroll bills.
I can't wait to read it.
Mr. Chairman, what now seems an eternity ago, I reviewed the payroll and bills, find them all to be in order. I move they be approved and submitted.
Someone second that?
Second.
Motion to second pay the bills. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0 there. Correspondence, we want to talk about the letter to Frank from Mrs. Bizdos.
Yes, what her request is, and I think, given when I attempted to make that left-hand turn to go to Subway, on Valley Brook Road, what she's asking for the township to do is to request the PennDOT to be able to paint on Valley Brook Road a do not block sign.
I think that would be good, like they did in front of the VFW.
Yeah, I will tell you, we have a bunch of these around town. They don't always work, but occasionally they do, so it's probably worth the effort, yes.
Yeah, and when you do that, ask again. You know, I asked a couple years ago when they were doing work on East McMurray, the one that was painted in McNary and East McMurray disappeared. The do not block intersection. Ask them why that never came back.
You know, we can request that as well.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Minutes, does anybody want to discuss anything on the board minutes?
Nope.
No, I'm all burned out.
Okay. Zoning hearing board? Talk about
Nothing.
So I see they approved that variance, the lot coverage one on Lilac.
Well, there was an issue with that too. Apparently, there was it already exceeded the lot coverage, and the township had approved it to exceed it some years back, and that was what the testimony was. So it was.
Oh, so he was already in
Non-conforming.
non-conforming.
Right.
So we expanded it.
So this was like ask for forgiveness after the fact kind of thing.
Well, I think
Except-
the township okayed it last time. Whether we missed it or didn't count the deck as part of the coverage, I don't know.
So the deck's already there then?
There is existing over, and they want you to expand it.
He's expanding it.
So they're increasing a non-conforming.
Which you're not allowed to do.
So wait a second. So he was already over
Yeah.
the maximum lot coverage.
At the township's approval.
Right. But then he wanted a variance
To
to further increase that. And what was his hardship?
There really wasn't one, but the testimony was that the township in the past didn't count that as coverage.
I think we appeal it, yeah.
I'll make a motion, we appeal it.
Second.
Second to appeal. All in
If there
favor?
was no hardship, that is one cardinal part of that application requirement. You can't increase a non-conforming.
You're right, and there was a lot of moving parts in that hearing and with the testimony from the town.
Dance with them.
And there were, it wasn't as clean as a hardship issue in terms of, again, the township's testimony as to whether it required that in the past.
Yeah, but John, that's the threshold for a variance is a hardship.
Well, I agree with you.
I
understand.
It's not,
Okay. Now, the billboard was denied that night, too.
Yeah, but what scares me is that the one we're talking about was a 5-0 vote. And I mean, that's a big element of getting a variance.
I mean, that's like saying if I tell my 9-year-old daughter, don't eat the cookies, right? And she eats 2 of the cookies out of the box. And then I just say, okay, you ate the 2 cookies out of the box, eat the other 4, right? Because essentially, okay, you're already above.
You broke the box.
Right, you're already beyond what you're supposed to have, but now you want more. Okay, why not? Let's just give it to you. You know what I mean?
All right, so we have a motion on the table to.
Before you vote, can I make a suggestion that you not vote, that we discuss this in executive session? You'll have an opportunity at the next meeting.
Do you want to withdraw your?
Yeah, John has concerns.
Or you could table it.
All right, I'll make a motion, we table it until.
Second. Motion is second. All in favor of the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're tabling.
I pass.
401, I guess.
All right.
Next agenda. Anything from anybody?
Nope.
All right, we're adjourned. We did have an executive session, I take it?
Yes, we do.